It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing. It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing. It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing. It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Happy Tuesday night to you. Christ-Servative Assassin, the anti-PC live stream community where we expose lies and exalt truth. And I'm glad you're in. Say what's up to me so I can give you a shout out. Leave your comments and we'll roll. Of course, tonight is episode 15, Fake Freedom, Pornos and Popcorn, Creepy, Tiny Hat, Subversive, Perversion Peddlers. That's where we're going tonight. Of course, appreciate all the support. Appreciate those of you that are tuning in. Trying to get all that content out. So got to give shouts out to everybody. Wifey, Russell Fam, Big Bear, G1 Fam, Cross Culture, and of course, Java Joe, the one, the only, caffeinated assassin, all legends, all crush. So it has been confirmed that my YouTube channel has been getting ghosted, but it's not that big a deal. I mean, they can ghost the channel, but they can't stop us from crushing. You know what I mean? Whether I have a YouTube channel or not, we're still going to do it. We're still going to crush. We're still going to enjoy life, enjoy the journey, have faith in God through Christ, have family, raise a godly seed, all of that. I mean, you guys know the drill. You guys know the message. No fear, no despair. Trust me, if they shut my YouTube channel down again, I'm not gonna cry on my pillow or nothing like that. It's not that big of a deal. But at any rate, like the video, share the video. That helps out a lot when you share the video because a lot of times what they do when they're ghosting my channel is the algorithms stop it from going out. The algorithms don't let it go out, so new people, new subscribers can view it. But if you navigate to my channel, you can share the videos from my channel. You can share them to your Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, and that helps to get the word out. It sort of circumvents, the sodomy bots and so forth. But anyways, share the video, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, there should be a little red button right about there so you can subscribe. Hit the bell. You'll get the notifications whenever we go live. And of course, tonight's Tuesday night. We're going to go live at least a few more times this week. We're trying to get the content out. I know we were going to do biblical cosmology, the flat out truth, some flat earth stuff. That was scheduled for yesterday and today, but I had an ankle incident. Brother Joe preached for me on Sunday. So I want to do those episodes back to back. So God willing, this coming Saturday night and Sunday night, we're going to do it. We're going to do Saturday night, the flat out truth, Sunday morning. And we're going to continue that trend Sunday night. And we're going to crush. We're going to have a blast doing it. Also, leave your comments. I'll try to pick those up. Looks like I got some already. I see you, Joe. The caffeinated assassin is in. Chetron Colos, what's up? And all right on. So let me leave these comments up. I'm trying to track the comments a little better. What's up, Abigail? I see you. All legends. Okay, so whosoever committeth sin is a servant of sin, and the servant abideth not in the house forever. What that means is bad news. If you're a slave to sin, that's bad news because all that's going up in smoke. But the Son abideth forever. If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. Now, let's get into it tonight. We live, as you know, and I've said on many occasions, in an inverted, upside-down culture where when you hear the word liberty or freedom, often the reality of what is being peddled is bondage. That's what I mean by, what's up, Victoria? I see you there. That's what I mean by, the upside down, the inverted world, calling good evil and evil good. So much that's being propagated in our culture is done so under the pretense of freedom and liberty. But the truth of the matter is it's actually slavery and bondage and control. We could talk about feminism, sexual liberation, pornography, all propped up as expressions of freedom, but are and always have been a means of satanic, individual, political, and social control. If you guys have any comments, hit me with those and I'll try to track those. And so, porno peddlers are nothing more than pimps or, drug dealers. I mean, what pornography has done is allowed little large-nosed, tiny hat gamma males to be pimps across a technological platform. They couldn't do it in an urban setting because they just get the snot kicked out of them. But anyways, I digress. And so porno peddlers, they're pimps, or you can call them drug dealers that exploit people on a technological platform. And the history of pornography runs alongside technological progress, but it also runs alongside moral decay. And sexual, quote unquote, sexual liberation or sexual freedom has been used for centuries to exploit people. And of course, the whole exploitive system always has been predicated on sexual, compulsion, or what you might call carnal passion. And it has advanced in its scope through digital technology. I mean, and we all know this, we all see this. And the truth of the matter is that pornography is a powerful weapon in the arsenal of spiritual and psychological warfare. And to state it in just simple terms, pornography will mess your life up. It'll mess your mind up. It'll wreck you spiritually. It'll destroy your family. What's up, Christian? I see you there. And it'll destroy a culture, and it'll destroy a nation. And by the way, that's the point. That's the point behind it all. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, by the way. Beard's coming in thick. It's going to have to come off soon, though, because the longer it gets, the more arrogant I become. And I'm going to have to shave it off before I become, a beard supremacist and start eliminating non-bearded people. Or non-bearded men, I should say. At any rate, I digress again. Of course, the tiny hats, as we like to call them, the satanic controllers want you to think, just the opposite. Whereas, as I said, pornography and, sexual perversion is and always has been a powerful weapon that works to the end of spiritual and psychological demise and cultural and national demise. But we can go all the way back in the history, all the way back to Babylon, down through the Roman Empire, right on down. We see, and by the way, it's destroying our nation. The fundamental driving force that is leading the charge in the flood of iniquity and debauchery in our nation is sexual immorality. Just mark it down. Just mark it down, because that is the truth. But of course, the tiny hats, the big noses, the satanic controllers, they want us to think just the opposite. And so what they do is they create, the false narrative to that end. We've talked about in past streams about Freudian, sexual perversion under the pretense of, psychoanalytical nonsense. And, all the psychological literature is largely, the contemporary psychological literature is largely a push to normalize sexual deviancy under the idea of psychological health and benefit, something like that. And so, for example, there is a Salon article that, nicely enumerates for us all the amazing benefits of porn, citing the psychological literature, to support their claims. And I have this here, and I will pull it up, and I will see if I can share it with you guys. And by the way, this isn't just some obscure article here. I mean, this is, you do a search, this is all day long. I mean, just site after site after site. So here we go. 9 surprising reasons why you should be watching porn. Oh, great. Sounds great. Let's check it out. Okay, number 1. Does porn make men see women as objects? Well, the obvious answer is yes, of course it does. Well, let's read on. Who knows? I'm just a table who somehow knows how to type, whatever kind of nonsense that is. He says, I kid. But let's not forget that we have treated women like objects for centuries, long before cheerleaders began having frolicsome locker room orgies. Can we really say that porn is the cause? Let me stretch this out so I can read it a little better. There we go. All right. Can we really say that porn is the cause of this objectification? Is it leading to more widespread abuse, or is something deeper at play? According to The Atlantic, the ubiquitousness of porn has correlated with a drastic decline in sexual abuse towards women. So there we go. So what's being communicated here? Well, the writer says, yeah, I don't really know if it objectifies women or not, but what it actually does, according to the Atlantic psychological literature, is it has created a decline in sexual abuse towards women. Well, what about all of the 18 and 19-year-old runaways getting plowed by perverted 40-year-olds on video cameras? How is that a decline in sexual abuse towards women? I mean, this is all nonsense, guys. It's retarded nonsense. In fact, as pornography's accessibility has exploded from 1990, since it has exploded, our nation has went in the toilet. Yes, but that's not what he's going to say. Sexual assault rates have gone down by 55%. By the way, these are all manufactured statistics. It's all nonsense. So I'm not going to read all of this. You guys can check that here. This is what I'll do for you guys. I will copy the link and I will post it in the comments. So if you guys want to check it out yourself, you can, because read at your own risk, because it's really retarded and you might actually get dumber for doing so. But anyways, number two, the second, just wonderful reason why you should watch porn. Porn increases sexual and overall satisfaction. This may sound simple, but watching porn tends to, well, make people feel good. Yeah, that has never been my experience. Full disclosure, I have watched porn before in the past, not proud of it. And by the way, it never made me feel good. Matter of fact, it made me feel sleazy and dirty and nasty and just evil. It's total nonsense, guys. It's total nonsense. But according to the psychological literature, it makes you feel good. A 2008 study by researchers studying hardcore porn's effects on Danish men and women found that respondents construed the viewing of hardcore pornography as beneficial to their sex lives, their attitudes towards sex, their perception and overall attitudes towards members of the opposite sex, towards life in general and overall. And then the paper's abstract ends with, we conclude that the overall findings suggest that many young Danish adults believe that pornography has had primarily a positive effect on various aspects of their life. And the nonsense continues. Porn encourages masturbation. Well, duh. I mean, that's not a news flash, but what's going on here is, or what the implicate is, or the implication is, that masturbation is a good thing. So this is what it says. In spite of persistent myths and false information, blindness, hairy palms, and by the way, masturbation does make you blind in an overall spiritual sense. It'll mess your mind up. Not talking about physical blindness, but at any rate. And by the way, there's layers of truth when you hear these sort of, whatever you want to call it, these, cultural, designations or symptoms of a particular thing. There's always layers of truth. And so, of course, masturbation don't make you go physically blind, but it'll blind you spiritually for sure. And, but anyways, in spite of the myths of false information, research has consistently shown that masturbation is healthy, increases one's fertility, and can even make us better partners, because people who masturbate are taking care of their own sexual needs, and what facilitates masturbation better than porn. And then the nonsense goes on. But look down here, guys. It says, according to Planned Parenthood, one of these times I'm going to do a stream on the founder of Planned Parenthood, just a wicked, evil witch straight out of hell, just absolute insanity. But at any rate, Planned Parenthood says, masturbation releases sexual tension, reduces stress, helps you sleep better, improves your self-esteem, lies, and body image, lies, helps treat sexual problems, nope, relieves menstrual cramps, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on from there. Just all a bunch of nonsense, guys. And listen, I know you guys can see it. I don't have to sit here and rail on it. I mean, it's just all nonsense. But look, this type of psychoanalysis is a dime a dozen all over the place. The number 4, tremendous benefit of watching porn. Porn is a form of safe sex. Unlike physical sex, watching porn spreads no diseases, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so is abstinence, by the way. Abstinence will prevent you from getting STDs. But of course, they'll scoff and they say abstinence leads to all sorts of psychological trauma. We talked about Freudian psychology in the past, and how Freud taught that, the cause of neurosis and all sorts of psychological problems is sexual suppression. But it's all lies. It's all nonsense. Let me hit these comments real quick. That's not true. It makes us abuse so much worse. That's exactly right. Joe says that's the Louis. Hold on. That pulls people in. Sprinkle a lie with a little truth makes it easier to accept. Yeah, I mean, that's Satan's scheme from the very beginning. 100% lore. Okay. So it's not Louis. All right. Let's get back on track. All right. Oh, porn makes you better at math. Isn't that wonderful? Well, some of this stuff they just pull, I mean, it's all lies, but sometimes they just stretch it out and it's just like the most retarded nonsense you ever heard. Apparently, porn makes you better at math. I don't know, maybe by counting penises or something. I don't know. Anyways, even if you're not masturbating, simply watching porn or reading erotica helps alleviate stress. Blah, blah. It's so stupid. I'm not even going to read it. Let's just press it on. Porn helps to normalize desires. No, it doesn't. Porn deepens the affliction of distempered carnal desires is what the actual, all this stuff is upside down, guys. It's total upside down, just insane nonsense. Porn helps to normalize desires. So let's press it on. Mainstream porn gives rise to awesome, queer, diverse indie porn. Well, isn't that something? That mainstream porn actually increases the scope of sexual debauchery and deviancy and all this kind of stuff. Well, that is actually correct. But of course, they're stating it as a wonderful thing, as a point of progress and a point to be applauded. But no. Number 8, porn helps you figure out what turns you on. That's so disgusting, I'm not even going to read it. Porn is entertaining. No, it's not. Porn is mind-numbing. What it is it's a form of trauma-based mind control is what it is. It is, you know what, to entertain, I think the etymology of the word entertain means actually to capture or to control. Anyway, so in that respect, it is entertaining. Let me do this. Let me take the screen down really quick, and I will actually look that up for you guys because to make sure that I'm actually accurate here. So we're going to look up the etymology of entertain and see if I was right. It means to hold, to maintain, to continue. So yeah, to hold or to control, to maintain in a certain condition, treat in a certain way, etc. And so entertainment, etymologically speaking, is still the same. It's a form of mind control, is what it is. And at any rate, so of course, you know, we're taught or we're told that sexual freedom goes hand in hand with freedom of speech. And you know that the issue of pornography is intrinsically linked to the issue of freedom of speech. And by the way, this has been a legislative tool used to infiltrate our culture with sexual perversion. When all of this stuff was going back in the early 70s and all of this sort of litigation with pornography was pressed into our culture and jammed down our throat in the name of free speech. It just was. And, you know, and that is the legislative tool. I mean, you can go back and you can look at the history of it. And, you know, the reality is that pornography is a form of, not only is it's a form of subversion, but the subversion is just the means to the end, which is enslavement, really. That's what it's all about. That's why I always say no to the pornography. Pornography is straight up enslavement. It'll mess you up. It'll mess your mind up. And when you consent to, by the way, we talked about manufactured consent. When you watch pornography, you're consenting to your own enslavement, to your own chains, to your own mind being shackled to the beast system. Counting numbers of victims of severe abuse isn't even correct because victims are told they will be killed if they talk. I mean, yeah, the statistics are all skewed, to be sure. So many people that have actually been subject to some sort of sexual abuse have never told anybody. And by the way, it's because of fear. That's right. Because fear, as we've talked about in past streams, is the number one control mechanism. And that's why I always say no fear here. We don't fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear. Listen, when you are afraid, you are ensnared. And that's exactly what the Bible says. The fear of man bringeth a snare. And so Satan is, as we talked about a couple of streams ago, the whole satanic economy is funded by fear, by fake fear. It's all fear propaganda, and it's all nonsense. And when people are sexually abused and they're controlled through fear, the fear is not what the fear is predicated on. It's not real. It's not. Anyways, and so pornography is, you know, sexual perversion. It's a form of control, enslavement. And, you know, pornography has nothing to do with freedom at all. pornography is what it is it's the weaponization of lust is what it is. And, we see weaponized lust used. I mean, you guys just saw the halftime Super Bowl show. I mean, you can look to the Bible and look at the account of Samson and Delilah. What we see there is an account of Samson's lust being weaponized and used against him to the point where he ends up eyeless in Gaza, grinding at a mill with slaves. And by the way, we can extrapolate that to our contemporary culture in by way of analogy or a figurative sense. Listen, if you allow yourself to become addicted to pornography or sex addiction, or give yourself over to sexual perversion, you will, in a figurative sense, end up eyeless in Gaza, grinding a mill with slaves. You will be enslaved. And that's just the truth. And I warned you guys a couple of streams ago about the halftime Super Bowl show. I said it, we called it. And by the way, we're batting 1,000 here at Christ-Servative. What did I say? I said it's a pseudo satanic, ritualistic mess of nonsense by which they're casting spells on people and little children. And look, if you watched it, maybe I'll do a stream on it. I'm kind of reluctant to do it just because everybody's doing it. So I kind of like to go against the grain in some sense. But I hit that thing 2 days before the Super Bowl, and I told you guys what was going to go down, and that's exactly what went down. And so in November of 2019, here's a fun fact. A group of young men started a campaign to boycott pornos and masturbation, and good for them. And by the way, pornography, I forgot to do it, but there's a great article by E. Michael Jones where he talks about pornography as one of the main points of fear propaganda. And what you find out is people that are locked up in fear, if you ask them like, hey, bro, do you watch pornography? Almost in every instance, the answer is yes. Because pornography, it just has such a devastating influence on people that presses them down into feelings of fear and despondency and despair. And that's the truth. But of course, they want to lie to you, just like that article I just read. And that's not an obscure article. I mean, that stuff is going on all the time. By the way, I appreciate the comments, guys. I'm trying to do a better job of keeping up with those. That stuff's going on all the time. But good for these guys. What's up, Eagle PhD? Tiny hat is a false flag. Yeah, well, we can debate that, on another time. But I mean, I don't know where you're coming from. What are you going to come with the Jesuits? Where are you going to come with the Vatican? I don't know. But anyways, that's not what the stream's about tonight. But I've done a substantial amount of research trying to connect these dots, and I would just simply disagree with that point. But hey, Eagle PhD, appreciate you tuning in tonight. And by the way, I've said in past streams, I am not against Jews at all. I'm not against. Matter of fact, I think I said the last time we streamed that, the average Jew on the streets, just like, like a cool dude or a cool chick, you know what I mean? They don't have anything to do with, the subversive elites. As a matter of fact, they get a bad rap because of those guys. The average Jew on the street just wants to be left alone, just wants to live their life, and do their thing. A Mama Juju's back. What up, bro? You're not allowed to report me. Player. All right. Anyways, what were we talking about? 2019. A group of young men started a campaign to boycott pornos and masturbation. I said good for them, and the reason behind it is because they recognized the inherent addictive and destructive influence of pornography. They understood because they were victims to it, and of course, the creepy, tiny hats, not false flag. Subversive porno peddlers, they could not stand for that. So Rolling Stone magazine, by the way, founded by Jan Simon Winner, Jew, by the way, and by the way, still ran by Jews, published an article in response to citing David Ley, PhD author, who wrote The Myth of Sexual Addiction. And of course, this guy, David Ley, is a clinical psychologist, of course, PhD guy, and sex therapist who studies pornography and mental health. And so, of course, Ley dismissed the campaign to boycott porn and masturbation as, and this is a quote, a creepy little smorgasbord of insecurity-driven hate with anti-Semitism, misogyny, and homophobia all rolled up into one. So here it is. If you oppose masturbation and you oppose pornography, guess what? That means you're creepy. That means you're insecure. That means you're filled with hate. That means that you hate Jews. That means that you hate women. That means that you hate homos and all that. I mean, it's just total nonsense, guys. All right. Well, hey, appreciate it, Amajuju. I see you right there. Yeah, I'm glad you don't agree with everything I say because, you know, you have the responsibility to think for yourself. But I'm glad that we found some common ground tonight, bro. So good stuff. All right. So let's press it on where we are. Okay. So Lay goes on to say this, and I quote again. Anti-porn, anti-masturbation ideology has historically been used as a tool by fascist figures to gain social control. Let me say it again, because this is an important point. He says, anti-porn, anti-masturbation ideology has historically been used as a tool by fascist figures to gain social control, but the exact opposite is actually the case. Now, what is the fascist figures being referred to? Well, if you read Lay's book, The Myth of Sexual Addiction, what you find out is the fascist figures being referred to is, surprise, surprise, the biblical patriarchy. In other words, Christian families led by godly fathers. And godly fathers are what they refer to as the authoritarian personality following Sigmund the Fraud Freud. And which, by the way, and this is the sentiment here, that's what sexual, quote unquote, liberation and freedom, sexual revolution was designed to destroy. Biblical patriarchy, authoritarian personality, biblical fathers leading grassroots Christianity, biblical homes. And by the way, that's why they hate my guts. Why they hate my guts? Because, you know, we're just crushing over here. Lovely, godly wife, 6 children, you know, raising them, you know, God's way, godly seed, home educating them, just crush it, just killing it. And they absolutely hate that. I am an authoritarian personality. I am the problem. I am the fascist, right? But that's absolute inversion is what it is. That's the upside down. It's not true. By the way, the remedy to a culture sliding into debauchery is the authoritarian personality. It is godly fathers and grassroots Christianity. And by the way, that is, as I said many times, that is the fundamental premise of this stream. Grassroots Christianity. Love God. Love your neighbor. Get married. Have a family. Practice fidelity towards God, towards your spouse. Have a godly seed. Have many children. Raise them for God. Educate and train them yourself. Have Christian community. Have memories together. All of that. That's how we win. And I know if I just keep repeating it because that is the message. Every stream, the message does not change. That's how we win. We don't win with sticks and stones and guns and bullets and, you know, all of that kind of nonsense. We win in our own hearts and in our own homes. That's grassroots Christianity. And when we nail it in our hearts and in our homes, then we have a testimony and we have a witness and we have light that we can share. Pornography leads to false ideas of what the viewer believes a normal sexual encounter should be. True. Ruining almost all future relationships because they aren't living up to the implanted expectations. Yeah, it essentially destroys your ability to love and be loved is what it does. And by the way, when you get mixed up in pornography, it will cause you to become disinterested in your own spouse, and your spouse knows it, she can sense it, or he can sense it, and it messes them up and it'll destroy a marriage. Amumu Juju has a question about education, even if it's not the subject of the stream. Go ahead, shoot, and I'll try to hit that. And I'm going to press the conversation forward in the meantime. Okay, so, I was digressing again. So, you know, I'm the fascist figure, right? I'm the bad guy because I say, you know, godly fathers, you know, grassroots Christianity, you know, godly seed, you know, all of that, you know the Bible, live the Bible, you know, all that old fashioned stuff. I'm a fascist, right? I'm the fascist figure. You know, I'm the misogynist. I'm the homophobe, you know, all that. And by the way, that's exactly what we just read. You know, if I say masturbation and pornography consumption is immoral, then guess what? I am insecure, creepy, I'm, hateful, I'm anti-Semitic, I'm homophobic, all of that. But it's all nonsense. And by the way, people get it. This is a false narrative that's created and propagated by all of our main, the people that control the narrative, the tiny hats that control the narrative. And they want you to believe that they have consensus, but they don't have consensus. They don't. Listen, I live in the real world. I talk to people. Most people, apart from, the bubble brainwashed crowd that have fallen for this junk, they're not going to fall for that. I mean, if you say, did you know if you oppose masturbation and you oppose pornography, that you're creepy, and not only are you creepy, but you're insecure, and you hate Jews and you hate women and you hate homos. Did you know that? The average person on the street be like, that's stupid. No, that's stupid nonsense, and I'm not falling for it. All right, let me see. I'm a juju. If you want your children to be taught in a Christian environment, why not send them to a private school? Or is it more just that you want your children to be taught by you with those Christian roots? Okay, so the reason is because there is, and I'll issue the challenge to you, Mama Juju. There is no exemption in the Bible from parents not educating and training their own children at all. The Bible is simple on this issue. That we are to raise, train, and educate our own children. That's why. And so would I say that a Christian school is better than a government school? Yeah, probably. But Christian schools are filled with perverts too. I mean, you hear about all the horrors of, private Catholic school and sodomizing children and all this kind of stuff, and so, in principle, a Christian school is better than a government school, but it's not biblical. And that's why my wife and I have determined to home educate our own children, is because that is the exclusive design of God that you'll find in the scripture, and you won't find anything else. And by the way, I issue the challenge to you. I'm a juju. All right. My wifey says, you're mine and my children's hero. Well, thank you. Truth be told, my wife is my hero. Baby, you do what you do so I can do what I do, and we make this thing go. That's why we're a great team. I ain't worth 5 cents without my wife. All right. The caffeinated assassin says, it's not just a desire to have our children raised in a Christian environment. It is a command from God to raise and teach our children. That's correct. That's fair. Thanks for answering. God, thanks for the question. I'm a Juju. Appreciate it. Joe says, God bless you, Sister Arlene, with a godly husband. Not all of us have been blessed that way. Wifey says a Christian school is not the same as a Catholic school. No, it's not. But there's a reason why God, the design of God is for us to educate and train our own children. And part of that is, it's not just to save them from wrong indoctrination. It's also to save them from potential abuse or abusers. And so, at any rate, let me try to get this thing back on track. And not everyone in the Christian school is a Christian. That's true too. So, all right. So, let's see where we're at. So, I was talking about authoritarian personality, all that. So, what is the main obstacle that stands in the way of subverting an entire culture with perversion and debauchery and all that kind of stuff? Well, guess what? Godly fathers. And that should be a news flash. And by the way, they know that. And that's why they're that's why there is such a just out of hell attack on biblical fatherhood first and biblical manhood afterwards. Because one thing that they know and they understand, that grassroots Christianity, what the necessary element of a godly culture and a godly nation is it starts with godly fathers. You eliminate the godly father, the whole thing crumbles. And that's just the truth. But aren't Catholic schools usually worse? Well, documented yes. But according to all of the what you would call, I guess, contemporary historical documentation, yes. And of course, but the Catholic Church is a very powerful organization, and they are in cahoots with the ruling elites, and they can make people disappear. They can control narratives, and I think it's even way worse than we even know about. That's just my experience anyway. I'm just curious. Catholic churches. Let me back that up. Aren't Catholic schools use the word? Joe says, Sister Arlene, some Catholic priests rape girls and altar boys in Catholic schools. That's correct. Anyways, thanks for not banning me from the stream. I have no intention of banning anybody. I won't ban anybody just so long as I got two things. As long as you don't say anything, as long as you don't say anything blasphemous about my Savior, or you don't say anything about my wife or my children, I'll let you hang around. I don't have any problem with people disagreeing or even talking a little smack. I'm cool with it. But you attack my family or you blaspheme my Savior, you're gone. That's it. All right. So godly fathers, that's what stands in the way. And that's why Freud hated the quote unquote authoritarian personality. Augustine said this. He said, a good man, and this is a quote, though a slave is free. Think about that for a second. A good man, a moral man, a godly man, though he may be a slave in a physical sense, is nevertheless free. Just like the Apostle Paul said, you can chain my body, but my spirit is free. But then he goes on to say this, but a wicked man, though a king, is a slave. So a wicked man, though he may be physically free and have all of the material prosperity that one could hope to have, is nevertheless a slave. And then he continues, for he serves not one man alone, but what is worse, as many masters as he has vices. What is he, end quote. And what is he saying? He is saying essentially what we read at the very beginning. He who sins is a slave to sin. I mean, that's the point. Sin is bondage. Sin is slavery. He who sins is a slave to sin. And this bondage to sin in the way of, what we're talking about tonight, quote unquote, sexual liberation or sexual freedom, has been harnessed as a means of exploiting people to the end of controlling and enslaving them. Yes, that's what it's all about. Let me stoke this fire, guys. It's a little bit colder out here tonight than it has been. That's why I got the jacket on. I'm going to try to stoke this fire up a little bit. All right. And so Marquis de Sade, let me give you another quote. Just a total reprobate, by the way. He said this, the state of a moral man is one of tranquility and peace. That is true. And the state of an immoral man is one of perpetual unrest. That is true. To be carnally minded is death, to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So what he said is true, but the point of why he was saying that, and this is his point, is that if you want to enslave a population, if you want to enslave a people, if you want to enslave a nation, then you must do so by promoting immorality. That's how it's done. And that's what it's all about. That's what all the pornography is about. That's what the sexual revolution is about. None of this is sort of like just a natural, organic development in the history of culture and society. No, it is all calculated, intentional, and planned. That's exactly right. So that's fair. I've got to go pick up my friend from work. Thanks for answering my question. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm a Juju. Appreciate it. Joe says, Sister Arlene, God knew you from the day your mother conceived you. He also knew you would help his son, Pastor Tommy. Yes, he did. All right. So, and so what's the point? See, the subverters know this. See, that they've already made their bargain with the devil. And let me tell you what a hell it is to know the truth, but oppose it. That's what the subverters do. See, Jesus said you would know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. You may know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But that means know the truth as it is in Christ in a saving way. The freedom is in Christ. You can know the truth, just like the devils believe and tremble, like James said. The subverters know the truth, but they are locked. They've made their bargain with the devil, and they oppose it. And what a hell it is. I mean, it's a total hell. And and so we're talking about Marquis de Sade. And see, they know that. They know that freedom, they know that tranquility and peace comes from union with Jesus Christ. And they know that perpetual unrest comes from immoral rebellion. They know that. And so what do? They propagate a culture of immorality because that's how you enslave people. That's how it's done. Appreciate all the comments tonight, guys. I'll continue to try to keep up with those. And so, you know, America has been driven into bondage, and sexual perversion is what has led the charge. As I said similarly at the beginning of the stream tonight. Now, E. Michael Jones, I told you about an article that I read of his. And by the way, he's a Catholic dude, and you know, Catholicism is nonsense. I mean, we know that, but he taught at a Catholic. He was a professor at a Catholic university, and he was fired for, get this, guess what? For opposing abortion. And you know, Catholicism is on a slide. It always has been. This Pope Francis, I mean, this guy is like one of the most wicked popes ever. I mean, every week he's just saying something obnoxiously disgusting and immoral. And I know the Catholic people are going to start spiraling and going, oh no, that's all blasphemous, talk about the Pope like that. The Pope is a retard with a boner hat. And I have no fear in saying that, because Catholicism is a false religion. It's nonsense. But anyways, but you know, you can learn, you know, certain people have certain cultural insights, and you can pick up something that they're laying down. And the article I read of his was pointing out the fact that pornography is one of the main instruments to propagate a culture of fear. And it's true. But he wrote a book called Libido, Dominati, Sexual Liberation and Political Control, by which he traces the historical development of sexual perversion and pornography as a means of, you guessed it, Jewish political takeover. And when you start connecting these dots, what you find out is the grabblers are behind it. I mean, it just never ceases to amaze me when you start connecting the dots historically. That's right. And look, it's not anti-Semitic propaganda. You know, anti-Semitism is nothing more than a social construct to avoid criticism. That's all it is. But anyways, I won't camp out on that. And so what E. Michael Jones does is he makes, and by the way, the reason why I respect E. Michael Jones is because he didn't cuck. You know, he was a professor at a Catholic university, and he says, I'm not going along with your abortion slop. And they said, you're going along with it or you're fired. And he didn't cuck. He's like, nope, not doing it. I'm not signing up for killing babies. I'm not going to do it. So they fired him. And, you know, that's commendable. You know, that's respectable. And of course, I respect him for that. And, you know, the problem with our culture is that men are just cucking a dime a dozen. You know, as soon as they turn the heat up a little bit, you know, we talked about the emasculation of America in the past. Go back and check out that stream where I talk about that, the Cucked Pussycat Club. But E. Michael Jones didn't cuck. You know, he's got the masculine. He held it down. He said, I'm not going along with baby murders, you know, not doing it. And so he moved on. You know, they fired him. He moved on. No big deal. You know what I mean? Listen, don't fall for the lollipops and the fancy pants. It's not worth it. It's selling your soul is not worth it just for some fancy pants. Not worth it. And don't apologize for truth ever, because that's what Mario Lopez did. He sold out he cucked like a little weasel. He went on the Candace Owens show and said trans children is child abuse, and they came and said, "Listen here, Mario, we're gonna take your lollipops and fancy pants and, you know, your So Glow perm away if you don't apologize and say you were wrong." So guess what? He came out and said, I apologize. What he said was true. And what he did is he cucked like a little wimp, like a little pussycat, and he apologized for saying the truth. And that's the problem. That's what all these little gamma, all these large nose gamma tiny hats do, is they use their political and economic influence to make people cuck. But I'm not doing it. And by the way, the Christ-servative peeps, we're not doing it. Don't cuck. And so anyways, and so what E. Michael Jones does in his book, The Libido Dominati, is he makes the historical connections between sexual perversion and pornography and the Federal Reserve, vulture capitalism. And by the way, vulture capitalism is not capitalism in terms of what our founding fathers, in terms of what is outlined by Adam Smith. Vulture capitalism is an exploitation of the capitalistic system by using usury to enslave people through enormous debt. That's what vulture capitalism is. And by the way, I'm against vulture capitalism. I'm all about traditional capitalism. Socialism is retarded. You know, socialism is, anyways, I'll talk about socialism on another stream. I'll just, for suffice to say for now, it's retarded. And so he traces the connection between perversion and pornography, and as I said, the Federal Reserve and vulture capitalism, libertarianism, which is retarded, usury, student debt, the Cato Institute, and right on down the line we goes. And it's just absolutely fascinating stuff. And the money which was accrued from the usurious takeover of the economy was used to undermine the moral basis and social order, taking political power out of the hands of the people and placing it in the hands of the satanic Jewish conspirators. That's what they do. They exploit a culture economically, and then they use the exploited economic system to further propagate the exploitation by means of immorality. That's what they do. And it's all tied together. The fascinating thing about E. Michael Jones's historical analysis is he traces the connection between pornography and the economic system and shows that they're inextricably connected. Sexual perversion, pornography, and the economic system and the exploitation of a culture and a nation. Very interesting stuff. How sexual immorality and exploitation is used to conquer an entire nation, essentially. And libertarianism, which, by the way, is funded by virtue capitalism, is a Jewish ideology designed to defend the satanic Jewish conspirators' interest. And when someone says that they're a libertarian, that just means that they're a retard. Ben Shapiro. Appreciate the participation tonight, guys. We're just going to keep crushing. All right. So, the reason why I bring up libertarianism is not only is it traced out in E. Michael Jones' historical analysis, but Jewish libertarians believe in quote unquote free speech, but only when it serves their purpose, only when it serves their interests. For example, Alan Dershowitz, who, by the way, is an alleged pedophile, who used, the free speech ploy to defend pornography in the 70s, in the early 70s, when the Jews had not yet completed their takeover of American culture. But then, of course, he abandoned, his free speech commitment in favor of hate speech. By the way, hate speech is nothing more than speech Jews don't like, by the way, just FYI. And after, the Jewish takeover of American culture was completed, he abandoned his hate speech commitment in favor, or his free speech commitment in favor of hate speech. And by the way, total hypocrisy. And this same Alan Dershowitz, who defended pornography as free speech in the early 1970s, is, and by the way, alleged pedophile, is the same Alan Dershowitz who stood next to Donald Trump last December 2019 when he signed an executive order using Title VI to ban criticism of Israel and anti-Semitism on college campuses. Yep. And so, what's the point tonight? The point is that sexual revolution is political and social revolution. That's what it's all about. It's not like, it's not freedom. It's not liberation. It's not, about sexual license or free sex. Nothing like that. Sexual revolution is political and social revolution. And, we're not just talking about sexual vice when we refer to revolution. We're talking about the covert exploitation of sexual vice followed by political and social mobilization away from moral virtue and towards satanic enslavement. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Comments, Jesus doesn't need us to apologize for him. I believe that it is so offensive to salvation he paid for with his life, to the salvation he paid for with his life. Yes. So, social chaos is the inevitable result of sexual liberation, quote unquote, sexual liberation. Thus, political control, or so it goes, is necessitated. And so we have a culture of people whose minds have been just burnt out, washed out on pornos, and their hearts and their spirits are being destroyed through sexual promiscuity and deviancy. And essentially, what we have is a cultural zombie apocalypse. I mean, just mind controlled porno bots, more porno, more porno, more porno, cell phone, screen, porno, porno, porno. And their minds are being burnt out and washed out. That's exactly what's happening. And so, let me give you a news flash. Let me stoke this fire first. I don't know if my fire is going to make it tonight because it's a little chilly out here. Glad to live in Arizona in the wintertime, for sure. You wouldn't catch me out here in Pennsylvania or something. That would be retarded. But in Arizona, we can survive, little fireside chat, Christ conservative. That's how we're doing it. And by the way, all you guys are crushing tonight. Appreciate it. And so, newsflash. Lust, if it is not dealt with, can become a formidable addiction. And, I say newsflash, somewhat facetiously, because it's not breaking news. Listen, we know that. If the lust of our hearts is not dealt with, it can become a formidable addiction. It can become a dragon that is impossible to slay apart from divine intervention, straight up. And so, the satanic conspirators, they know this, and, they exploit it to accomplish their wicked ends. They understand not only the destructive influence of lust, but the addictive nature of lust. And so what do? They cater to it. They know that, and they weaponize it, as we said at the very beginning. They weaponize it against us and use it to accomplish their nefarious and wicked ends. In other words, sexual freedom, quote unquote, is actually social control and enslavement, individual and social and cultural bondage. That's what it is. And, what we're really talking about is, like a Gnostic system of two truths. You have the exoteric truth, which is essentially a lie that is presented as truth, propagated by the conspirators through their advertising and their Super Bowl halftime shows, and, their sex education and Hollywood and movies and media and higher education. And, it is the truth that is for general consumption. And that is the truth, the lie being presented as truth for general consumption. And that is sexual liberation is freedom, right? Free sex is freedom. And, that is the accepted truth, or what we might call the accepted lie. Now, the esoteric truth is the one that informs the schemes of the wicked controllers. The ones who benefit, quote unquote benefit. I mean, they're in cahoots. They've made a deal with the devil, and they're miserable and they live in fear. And so we can call it a benefit. They're accomplishing a certain goal, but it's not, they can't extract any happiness from it or joy from it at all. They're just absolute miserable, pathetic people. But, they are the ones that actually, quote unquote, benefit from the liberation. And, and that is, the esoteric truth is the exact opposite of the exoteric truth. And that is sexual liberation. This is what the exploiters know, is that, quote unquote, sexual liberation is a form of satanic enslavement, a way of ensuring that the wicked maintain control by exploiting the carnal passions of the foolish and naive, who identify with their passions as if they were synonymous with their personal identity. And of course, Satan becomes the great liberator of their personhood, because he enables them to gratify those carnal passions. And by the way, watch my stream on existential sexualism. I go all into that. And, this is the fundamental premise of Satanism. Kabbalistic, Kabbalah, Talmudic, Judaism, Lucifer is the great liberator, the great light bearer, and is emblematic of freedom. Take it for what it is. And so, those who give themselves over to carnal passions are given the moral justification by the satanic system, sexual license, sodomy, pornography, pick your poison. They all become powerful, manipulative, and exploitive forces by which control is exercised over your life. That's exactly right. And, man is fallen and has a carnal bent. We all have carnal passions. And the truth is whoever is guiding and controlling and manipulating those passions, that is who is controlling your life. Straight up. And so, as we read already, whosoever committeth sin is a servant to sin. And Jesus also said, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. Think about it. The lusts of your father you will do. Whoever or whatever is controlling our distempered, carnal, and sinful passions, that is who is controlling our life. Facts, son. Straight up facts. And so, when you read the literature on sexual liberation or sexual freedom, it's all just so disgusting. I spent a great deal of time kind of reading through it and kind of mucking through it. And when you do that, it's just kind of digging through the trash can is essentially what it is. And, the moral premise of the entire scope of the literature is that people just want to be free, or to couch it in feminist terms, girls just want to have fun, right? Comment. That's probably why there's so many sexual rituals in Satan worship. Yeah, of course. Listen, if you take sexuality, sexual immorality, and you remove it from the satanic system, it all crumbles. Straight up. And there's reasons for that that are probably worth mentioning, but I won't mention them for now, just for time's sake. But yeah, I mean, the satanic system, the sexual perversion is the main premise of the whole system. Straight up. And by the way, as I said, all of the sexual liberation, sexual freedom literature, the main premise is, people just want to be free. Moral constraints are, and this is the inversion, this is the upside down. Moral constraints, moral virtue is oppressive, but sexual license is freedom. That's the main premise. Comment. I've noticed that when speaking with non-believers, you can speak on any sin except sexual sin. When you touch their sexual sin, they become hostile. Yeah, because that's the fundamental idol in the whole satanic system is sexual immorality. Straight up. And so, of course, the main premise, we just want to be free. Girls just want to have fun. And, the dogma is sexual license is liberating. That is the dogma. And the quest, for liberation, the quest for freedom carries with it its own moral justification. Freedom needs no justification. It has its own justification within itself. Listen, that's true, okay? The problem is what they claim is freedom is actually slavery. It's the upside down. It's the inversion. Going back to what Java Joe said, a truth is presented. Freedom carries its own justification. That's true. But then what is imported into the term freedom is completely upside down. And it is not freedom at all. And so, John Heidenry, a total reprobate, he wrote a history of the sexual revolution. Again, I was talking about the literature, so I might as well get a sample of it. And his history of the sexual revolution is what he calls what a wild ecstasy. That'll tell you everything you need to know. They say you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can judge a book somewhat by its title. What a wild ecstasy. And of course, speaking of the sexual revolution, he says this, and I quote, the particles of revolt and enlightenment coalesced into a sexual Big Bang. I want to say that again. The particles of revolt and enlightenment coalesced into a sexual Big Bang. Now, end quote. This is a very telling and interesting connection that should not be overlooked because, you know, what it is, it's metaphysical insanity because essentially what it is it is a false satanic cosmology extrapolated to explain sexual immorality. And by the way, this is why biblical cosmology is so important, which is why a proper understanding of what God says concerning cosmology, concerning the earth, concerning the sun and moon and the stars, it's so important. You know, I hear people say, well, you know, why is that so important? Why is the shape of the earth, what God teaches, what the Bible teaches concerning the shape of the earth, concerning the sun, the moon, and the stars, why is all that so important? You know, Edward Henry wrote a book called The Greatest Lie on Earth. I have it. It's in my office now. Great book, by the way. And in that book, he details the historical connection between worldly cosmology and sexual perversion. Listen, why is it important? Are you getting it? Are we getting it? Why is it important? There is a historical and cultural connection between worldly cosmology and sexual perversion. And listen, it's not hard to understand. Eradicate God by a false meta narrative, you know, Big Bang, millions and billions of years, you know, expanding infinite space, spinning globe, you know, all the nonsense, you know, eradicate God and and with a false narrative, and guess what? Everyone just does what is right in their own eyes. There you go. Not complicated. Wifey says, I don't think anything has such a hold on people like sexual perversion, money, power, education. Don't mar an individual at such a deep level. Yeah, because our sexuality goes all the way deep. It cuts to the core of our human identity. Because God created man and he said it is not good that man should be alone. I make an helpmeet for him. God instituted the one flesh covenant union that we call marriage. And that is fundamental to our human personhood and identity. God's design for marriage and sexual expression and so forth. And it says at such a deep level to the point of an unavoidable shame, saves or not. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly true. And so, anyways, I digress. What were we talking about? Oh, we're talking about, we're talking about John Heidenreich's nonsense. Uh, Edward Hendry is awesome. Godly man, great book, The Greatest Lie on Earth. He traces the historical connection between worldly cosmology and sexual perversion. But John Heidenreich is a total reprobate, and in his history of sexual revolution, and I want to read that quote to you again because I think I digressed a little bit. He says, the particles of the revolt and enlightenment coalesced in a sexual Big Bang. So what is he doing? And as I said, we can't overlook this because, as I said, it's metaphysical insanity. And what he's doing is he's taking a false satanic cosmology and extrapolating it to explain sexual immorality. Not what he would call sexual immorality. But anyways, in his history of the sexual revolution, what a wild ecstasy. What wild ecstasy. Um, Essentially what he says, or what he's pointing at, is just as the universe and all of its grandeur and beauty, right, and order is really nothing more than random chaos. There goes the false worldly satanic cosmology. And so there's no, all the grandeur and beauty and order. We're just going to get rid of that, because what it really is chaos, random chaos of discrete particles bumping into each other. This is the false meta narrative. And so he extrapolates that and he says, in a similar sense, every social movement, in this case, sexual liberation and freedom, is essentially the same thing. So instead of, atoms, we have atomistic individuals, not connected. Persons, people are not connected by a divine plan or providence or purpose. We're just atomistic individuals with no inherent connection or providential order or plan with one another. Instead of natural law, we have sexual passion as the great, motivating force. Instead of a world that is reflective of God's order, we have a society that is reconfigured by social movements like sexual liberation and, sexual deviancy, promiscuity, license, and all of the rest are become right by definition. And that's just the way it is. And that's his whole point. His whole point is there is no order. There's just chaos. And so what we have is what we have, and what we have is good and right by definition, but it's all satanic nonsense. By the way, predicated on a satanic cosmology. Straight up. So why is biblical cosmology important? I know I'm sort of like, jumping the wagon a little bit here, but that's exactly why. It's because the whole satanic system is predicated on it. Anyways, and so the message is simple. People everywhere just want to be free, and what better way to encapsulate that freedom than by whacking off to pornos? And I know that sounds crude, and it is, but it illustrates the point. This is the message. Sexual license, sexual deviancy, sodomy, homosexuality, pedophilia, pornography, masturbation, what a better way to express our freedom than to just give ourselves over to debauchery. Well, bottoms up on the coffee, fire's almost dead, and it's chilly out here. But we're going to stay warm by this fire. This fire that we're spitting together. That might have been a little bit corny, but I can't help it. I'm corny from time to time, y'all. Sometimes I just got to wave the white flag and say, guilty, a little corny sometimes, maybe just a little nerdy sometimes. Anyways, what were we talking about? Okay. So let's be clear. All right. We're not really talking about freedom. Sexual liberation is not freedom. What we're talking about is moral and spiritual bondage by way of sex and pornography addiction, sexual license, all of that. And this operates both on an individual as well as a cultural level. I mean, we see it. And, Heidendry's book, The Reprobate, it's a disgusting book, by the way. And, the sexual revolution, contrary to what he thinks, was not, a grassroots uprising. It was not a coalescing of particles of revolt and enlightenment. Rather, it was an orchestrated satanic scheme by which sexual behavior outside of marriage would be normalized as a form of insurrection, leading the charge in debauchery and moral decay and degradation, and at last bringing in the bondage of satanic and social and political control and enslavement. Straight up. Joe says the Big Bang Theory should be God said it and bang, it happened. Yeah. The problem with that is there's too many quote unquote Christian scholars who actually affirm Big Bang cosmology, and they just say God did it. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but we gotta bring in the proper import, which is young Earth creationism. God created the world in 6 days, approximately 7,000 years ago. Okay. And all of the rest of the nuances of biblical cosmology, right? And so there was no Big Bang. Yes, God said it, bang, it happened. But we're talking about young Earth creationism. We're talking about a fixed firmament and a flat Earth, etc. All right. So I digress again. But thanks for the participation tonight, guys. I'm trying to track it a little better. I think I'm doing a good job tonight. So appreciate you guys. And so what was the point I was just making? Oh, yeah. So the sexual revolution, it wasn't something that just organically developed unfolded in the course of social and cultural history. No, it was satanically conceived. It was a scheme that was orchestrated to the end of, satanic insurrection and bringing an entire culture and nation into satanic bondage, straight up. And so, hey, Sister Debbie, see you there. Appreciate you guys tonight. So, historically, this has been accomplished, and we see it in our own nation and our own culture. It's been accomplished historically over and over and over again. We see what leads the charge and the destruction of a nation. It's always sexual perversion, always. And we've talked about all the connections, so I won't do it again tonight. We'll just press it forward. But if you're tuning in late, you can go back and listen to the stream on the rebound, and it'll be informative to you if you do. But the satanic conspirators understand something very, very, very well, and that is, of all the control mechanisms, carnal passion is by far the most powerful, and that's why it always leads the charge. If you can win the battle, win the sexual battle in the heart and the mind of a person, you got them, straight up. And by the way, they know that, and that's why sexual perversion is always leading the charge. Understanding, fallen human nature, and the accessibility and flood of pornography, it's not by accident. They know it. They know the powerful and addictive influence and character of it, and that's why the flood of pornography in our culture, it's not by accident. It's intentional. And stand against it. Don't fall for their pornos. That's why I say it all the time. You will become a slave if you fall for it. And the accessibility of pornography, it is there for that very reason, to enslave a person through addiction, straight up. And once you become addicted, the details of your addiction will be in part what exercises the satanic control over your life. And I'm about to shift gears and go into another element of this right now. But the satanic idea, and of course this is the subtext of Hyde Henry's book, and that is, everyone who opposes sexual liberation will be punished. But it's a fear tactic. I want to say screw them, but my wife tells me not to say that, so I apologize, wife. Because I got to keep kind of reel it in, but forget them, or whatever is a nicer way to say it. This is the satanic idea. If you oppose sexual immorality, we're gonna punish you. Whatevs, bro. I ain't tripping. You know what I'm saying? To take a stand against the flood of, immorality and sexual perversion, it will come with a test. Know that. It will come with a test. Because what they know is, if you fail the test, that you will be rendered impotent in your ability to oppose it. And what Henry says is that you will come to an unhappy end. And by the way, that is a threat. And to some extent, it is a real threat, right? If you fail the test. If you don't fail the test, listen, the righteous are as bold as a lion, but the wicked flee when no one pursues. If you don't fail the test, then there's no reason to fear, right? That's why I always say, don't fall for the pornography and don't fall for the infidelity. Don't watch pornos and don't cheat on your wife or your husband. That's the test. And if you don't do that, they have no power over you. How do they exercise power over you? They exercise power over you by testing you. And if you fail the test and you start watching their pornos and you start cheating on your spouse, they got you. And they know that. And so when they say you will come to an unhappy end if you fail the test, there's some truth in that. And look, that's why I always say, don't watch their pornos. You know, don't give in to infidelity. You know, say no to their pills and their dope and their drugs and their loans and their entertainment and all the rest of their slop. You know, to say a quote unquote unhappy end is just another way of saying that sexual immorality is satanic control. It is. And if you give into it, in some sense, you have come under the dominion of it. Straight up. And the satanic system, the satanic conspirators, they're not consistent proponents of sexual liberation. They never are. You can't believe the narrative because the narrative, it's all a front, right? If you oppose sexual liberation, they will try and use it as a means to test you and destroy you. If you fail the test, they will use it to discredit you and destroy you. Straight up. Straight up. And by the way, on this technological platform, there's no way. I mean, God knows already. And by the way, the 666 Google knows too, because they're running the 666 platform. Straight up. They know how many times we watch pornos. They know whatever, infidelity apps that you're using. They know. They know. And that's why so many people get torn down by the test, because you stand up and you say, listen, I'm taking a stand against immorality and pornography and all that. And guess what? The beast system, the 666, the Google says, oh yeah, well, we have your resume. We know how many times you've been watching pornos. We know where you've been. We know. Everywhere your cell phone has been, we have been. And we know. We got the whole scoop. And what they'll do is they'll use it. If you fail the test, they'll use it to discredit you, wash you out, and they'll use it to destroy your life. Straight up. And so, if you affirm sexual liberation, so I'm talking about this twisted satanic dichotomy, this inconsistency by which the conspirators, how they're not altogether consistent with their view of sexual liberation, right? If you oppose it, they'll test you and try to destroy you by it. If you affirm it, they'll covertly use it as a means to destroy you through your own moral consent. Straight up. And so this is what you call a satanic double standard concerning, sexual liberation and freedom. And by the way, it's only explainable in terms of social and political and satanic control. And it only has meaning in light of the politics or the moral convictions of the person who commits it. Did you get it? Whichever side of the line you're on, this double standard of sexual liberation, it only makes sense in terms of the double standard only makes sense in terms of what your moral convictions are. If you say pornography is immoral, well, let's put you to the test and see if you can pass the test, because if you don't, we're going to destroy your life. We're going to wash you out. And if you say, oh yeah, I'm all about it, pornography is good and healthy and masturbation, all that kind of stuff, well, they'll just allow you to destroy, by your own moral consent, allow you to destroy your own life by it. And so, if you're an advocate of sexual liberation, they'll clap for you. Go ahead, masturbate to all your pornos, sodomy, oh yeah, you're such a hero. If you oppose it, you will be tested. And if you fail the test, they will condemn you, shame you, and discredit you by it. Why? It's all about satanic control. And the way that it's exercised in our life depends on which side of the moral equation we're on. If we're on the side of righteousness, that will be tested. If you're on the side of unrighteousness, help yourself and destroy your life by it. It's all a satanic conspiracy, straight up. So, at any rate, appreciate you guys participating tonight. The wifey says, I'm sure they have so much dirt on so many politicians, so they couldn't make moral legislations. Yeah, that's how they get them. That's what they do. By the way, they put people in positions of power that they're already under their control because of their rap sheet. That's straight up. And you know, if you're on the quote unquote wrong side of the equation, fail the test, you'll be marginalized as a hypocrite, washed out. But if you're Hugh Hefner, you'll be exalted as a cultural hero. What a liberator, right? And further than that, if someone decides they want to turn the screws on the flood of sexual immorality, you will be faced. If you say you want to be what do they call it? An activist of some sort, maybe you want to call, I don't like the term activist because it's so politically charged and I hate politics. But if you want to be a proponent of biblical morality and take a stand and press the cause of righteousness against sexual perversion and debauchery, if you really want to be a person that wants to turn the screws on this stuff, you will be faced with ongoing and calculated satanic sexual seduction over and over again, because Satan's going to try and get you, because this is what they know. If you fail the test, not just the first time, not just the second time, not just the third time, if you pass the test first time, second time, third time, no matter, Satan will keep coming and he'll keep coming and he'll keep coming, because if you fail the test at any point at all, that's it. They'll wash you out. And so just know that, if you want to stay in your little Christian bubble and, not take a stand on anything, you're not a threat to the beast system. You're not a threat to the satanic cause, but you decide you want to turn the screws. Guess what? You better come ready for a fight. And I'm talking about a spiritual fight. 2 Peter chapter 1, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue. And he goes on, he says, if you do these things, you shall never fall. That's what we need. We need biblical godly virtue. Because if you ain't got it, when the test comes, we're in trouble. Just know it. We're in trouble. And so, for those who wish to sell out, the satanic system will gladly use you up. Just know it. And it's sad. It's heartbreaking and sad to see the trajectory and the path of the young people of our nation that they go down. And even in our churches, I see the spiritual battle, and it's real in the hearts and the lives of young people. And there's such a satanic, seductive spirit. We saw it at the Super Bowl halftime show. That was all casting spells, all those images, subliminal images. That's why I said it's pseudo-satanic, ritualistic, mess, casting spells, over the hearts and the minds of our young people. It's so retarded. I was listening to sports talk radio on the way home from church last night, and some guy called in, and they were talking about the Super Bowl halftime show. And he said, yeah, I have an 8-year-old son. And, he was like making a joke out of it, right? He was saying, I have an 8-year-old son, and we watched the halftime show together. And, when the halftime show started, my son was a boy, but when it was over, my son became a man. I mean, that's illustrates the point that I'm making, is that it's a satanic spell, and they laughed it off. Ha, 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 right? Yeah, rite of passage into manhood, right? Watching all that satanic sexual debauchery. But listen, And this is a message for young, it's a message for everybody. It's a message for young people. You know, if you sell out to the satanic system, they'll use you up, and at your expense, they will accrue to themselves, you know, political and social power, economic power, you know, from the created culture that devalues moral virtue and esteems debauchery. And this is what I want you to know. When they're done with you, they will throw you in the trash can, straight up. And, you know, the person that loves you is the person that will tell you that. And listen, I know this real and intimately because I used to be a young person in the world and I was under the spell. And I'm not going to go into the details of that, but I know it's real. And some people spiral and they're like, "Oh, you're just exaggerating. You know, it's just a halftime show. J-Lo and whatever her name is. You know, you're making too much." No, I'm not making too much out of it. It's real. It's satanic. They're casting spells, and so on and so forth. Hey, Mama Juju made it back. You missed a lot, bro. You're gonna have to catch it on the rebound. And so, anyways. If you succumb to sexual addiction and refuse to play ball, you know, you will be outed. Just know that. And by the way, that's biblical. Look at Proverbs chapter 5. Look at Proverbs chapter 7. You know, your sin will find you out. You know it. You know, and the satanic conspirators, they will out you. They test you. You fail the test. You know, if you fail the test and refuse to pay ball, this is what they'll do. They'll say, okay, if they find some practical usefulness from you, you fail the test, they'll say, all right, we know what you did and you're going to play ball or else. And if you refuse to play ball, that's it. You'll be outed, marginalized, not just marginalized, you'll be shamed, washed out, discredited, propped up as a hypocrite, and they'll use you as, you know, like Nathan said to David, you have given, you know, unbelievers great cause to blaspheme. That's what they'll do. They'll prop you up as, look at this Christian phony hypocrite. This is what Christianity is all about. And then they'll wash you out and send you down the line. And listen, for those who refuse to go along and don't have sexual, you know, skeletons in their closet, they'll nevertheless ridicule you, patronize you, ignore you. You know, you're just a prude, just a, you know, little Bible boy or a little Bible girl or whatever, you know. And so those who go along with the ideology of sexual liberation or sexual freedom, you know, they can practice all the sexual perversion and deviancy they please with all the social affirmation and applause, because in going along with it, they're already under the satanic spell of the satanic controllers anyways. They already got them. And so what do? They just clap for them. J-Lo, you know, and, you know, the rest. I'm just using that as, you know, as an immediate example because I guess it's, you know, practically relevant based on our place in history since it was just 2 days ago or whatever. But they got them, you know, and they're clapping for them, and you know, they got them, you know. And so, you know, the whole system is predicated on a satanic double standard. You know, the same act can be viewed as both heinous and liberating depending on which side of the line you're on. Straight up. Whichever the side of the line you're on. You know, sexual liberation is you know, it's satanic individual, political, and social control. And so if you're a Christian and you get caught up in sexual immorality, well, look at this heinous creep, right? But if you're an advocate of sexual liberation, oh, what a hero. And it's a satanic double standard is what it is. And so, you know, if you go along, if you play their game, you'll be exempt from the social shame. And by the way, who cares about social shame? You guys know I don't care about it. You know, you'll be a hero in a sense, you know, but if you refuse, you will become a mark to be destroyed. And the life that you lead determines which side of the line, which side of the line that you're on. Whatever serves the political and social agenda gets play and nothing else. Sexual liberation promotes sexual addiction in the name of freedom, then exploits it as a means of control and enslavement. And by the way, that's the premise of the whole stream tonight. Sexual liberation promotes sexual addiction in the name of freedom and then exploits it as a means of satanic enslavement, straight up. It is then used to destroy anyone of sufficient prominence or influence who refuses to go along. Just know that. And look, this is nothing new. I used the example of Samson and Delilah at the very beginning. We can look at it in the example of David's life. Sin is a form of slavery. And so, love God, die to yourself. If you love yourself, then you're going to die to God. Or I should say, a carnal love of self spoken of in 2 Timothy chapter 4 is a love of sin, a love of idolatry, a love of self. So if you love God, you will die to yourself, die to sin. If you love yourself, love sin, then you die to God. And man lusts to dominate the world. This is beginning of history, going all the way back to Genesis chapter 3 on. Sinful man wants to have his cake and eat it too. Has a lust to dominate his world, to satisfy his carnal appetites. But the irony of it all, or the paradoxical hell of it all, is that in himself, man is dominated, enslaved by that very same lust. That is the paradoxical hell. That is the devil's bargain, And when you make a bargain with the devil, you can't win. Just know that. And so, how do we win? You already know. If you've ever tuned in, you already know. This is how we win. Not by sticks and stones and bullets and fights and all of that. That's trying to play the game on their terms. We win first in our own hearts, in our own homes. Love God. Love your neighbor. Get married. Love your spouse. Practice fidelity towards God, towards your spouse. Have lots of children. Raise a godly seed. Educate and train them yourself. Enjoy the journey together. Life, love, joy, peace. Create memories with your family. Get involved in Christian community. And if you do that, you'll have light, you'll have love, you'll have a testimony to share with people. And it will have power in it. Listen, if our house is all busted up and we're going backwards in our own heart and our own home, we don't really have a testimony. I'm talking about grassroots Christianity. We get it nailed down in our heart and in our home, do it God's way, then we have light and we have a message. And that's how we win. God bless you guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate all the participation and support, prayers, all of that. Love you guys. Share the video. As I said, YouTube is ghosting me, but share the video, and that helps. That helps get the word out, and appreciate you guys doing that. And so that's it. Christ Servant Assassin, we getting out of here. Love you guys. Soli Deo Gloria. We out. God bless.
It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing. It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing. It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing. It's conservative assassin, truth stay shining, busting on you wizards so the truth stay climbing.